Good morning. My name is Ryan Hicks, and today is Thursday, July 13th, and I want to give some insight on Twin Peaks. I've been a lifelong fan of Twin Peaks and followed the show when it initially came out as a young boy, and have been anxiously awaiting its return. And what I want to start today with some videos, not necessarily giving theories about how the show is working or what's the story I think is going to happen. I mean, I'd give a little bit of that, but just a little bit of reference as someone that's loved the show for so long. And I thought I'd start today with a video on the top 7 reasons why the original Twin Peaks was and is so great. First, a little bit of background about it. When I was a kid, I watched Twin Peaks. I was about 11 years old when it came out. And you think about what an 11-year-old is into, and if you think about the work of David Lynch, that's usually not what most 11-year-olds are into. And I certainly wasn't before Twin Peaks, but it was something about that show that really hooked me when I was young. Watching that show really challenged me. If you think about the things that were on TV at the time, it was all very formulaic, very paint by numbers almost. You could see what was going to happen. It was predictable, right? And Twin Peaks was the opposite of that. Watching it kind of changed me too. It made me more spiritual. It made me more intrigued with mystery, more tuned into subtlety because when you watch Twin Peaks, you really had to pay attention in order to kind of connect the dots and put the pieces of the puzzle together. And it really was a puzzle. When the last episode of Twin Peaks aired, the episode where Dale went into the lodge and the Doppelkoop came out, I guess, now as we call him, and we see that great last scene with where he looks in the mirror and smashes his head against the mirror and it breaks, and we see the image of Bob in the glass, and we see Cooper going, "How's Annie? How's Annie?" And that, like, the blood coming down, the maniacal look on his face, that changed me, and that's how it ended. And I remember being, I think, 12 years old at the time, and I went on my bike and I just rode out of town for like 5 kilometers for like a half hour just because I was trying to process and go, what does that mean? You can't end a show like that. That's not how it works. You can't do that. It messed me up in the best possible way because it showed me that, in life there's not always a happy ending. It doesn't always go where you think it's going to go. And Twin Peaks, if anything, has always gone through the human experience, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. But here are my top 7 reasons why I think the original was so wonderful, and this definitely applies to season 3. It challenges the audience. It doesn't take things for granted. It tells you, hey, you really have to pay attention if you want to be on this ride, and the reward is there too if you go along for the ride, if you go with it, if you pay attention, if you follow along, if you're patient. Think about that scene in season 3 with the guy that was sweeping the floor. I think that was 2 minutes long. Not that's necessarily going to pay off, but you got to be patient, and it really challenges the audience. Number 2, it dealt artistically with some really, really dark aspects of humanity. If you think about the original storyline, we're talking about Laura Palmer, who's this like teenager, ideal town, homecoming queen, all these things, but she was a coke addict. She had a father that abused her, incest, the real darkness that it dealt with, and it didn't deal with it in a, it's hard to say, it was subtle. Like, there are a lot of things that weren't subtle about Twin Peaks, but it never really sold the fact that this was her daughter, this was her dad that was sexually abusing her, and the way that they described it was that he must have been inhabited by this demon for it to happen. It was, really interesting how they really dealt with some of the darkest aspects of humanity. Number 3, Mark Frost. David Lynch is a wonderful, director, writer, cinematographer, genius. But Mark Frost, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why Twin Peaks has worked, because he had the sensibility to work within the medium of TV, to forward the story so that it made sense. You have to know the rules in order to break them, and Mark Frost really knew the rules and was able to kind of work with David Lynch to keep him in this realm of how you tell a story on television. I think Mark Frost has been an unsung hero all the way through. Number 4, David Lynch incorporated dreams into television. non-linear things. A lot of David Lynch's inspiration came to him in a dream, and he didn't really worry about having to explain it or why this was or what the dream meant, but he would use those in television. And he did not have to explain every little detail, which gave the show mystery and intrigue, which has really paid off. Number 5, collaboration. Let's not forget how many people work on Twin Peaks. We're talking about, in season 2 especially, all the different directors, and I know a lot of people kind of knock them and say, oh, when David Lynch left, the show went downhill, but I loved all the different things that all the directors put in, and then I think it was great that they were allowed to kind of put their own spin on it. There wasn't just, they weren't trying to recreate David Lynch or do their best David Lynch impersonation. They brought their own gifts to it. All the writers, all the set directors, Angelo Badalamenti, all his musicians that he worked with, and of course all the actors that brought it to life. So many people have worked on Twin Peaks to realize Mark Frost and David Lynch's vision. Number 6, innovation. Obviously it challenged people's conception of TV and inspired many filmmakers, and perhaps today look at TV as their means of storytelling. I know there's so many directors in film and television right now that were directly inspired by watching Twin Peaks when they were younger. And last but not least, number 7, Kyle MacLachlan. What can we say about Kyle MacLachlan? Obviously in season 3 he's nailing it and like hitting it out of the park with his performances, but his performance of Dale Cooper really represented the everyman. It represented our ideal, someone that was virtuous, someone that was noble, someone that had integrity, a patriot. And if you want to go into that, read the tapes of Special Agent Dale Cooper, whatever the name of the book is. I read it when I was a kid. It really kind of enlightened me about who Dale Cooper was. He had this ideal vision of America and what the FBI represents, so it's really cool. Kyle MacLachlan is just a wonderful actor, and Twin Peaks would not be Twin Peaks without Special Agent Dale Cooper, and Kyle MacLachlan is responsible for that. I'm going to have some more videos soon posting about the new season, some of my thoughts, again not explaining things, but some of the things that I really think are wonderful. Thank you so much.